The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted across the galaxy on frequencies that made Earth's quantum receivers scream with overload. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the communications center of Luna Base, watching the alien symbols translate themselves into human text on the main screen. Around her, technicians worked frantically to decode the transmission while trying not to look as nervous as they felt. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Commander Torres, his voice tight with barely controlled tension. "The translation is complete. It's from the Galactic Council." Chen nodded slowly, her gray eyes fixed on the screen. After 3 years of brutal warfare that had stretched across dozens of star systems, the aliens were finally ready to talk. Or so they claimed. The message was simple and direct in the way that ultimatums always were. The Galactic Council demanded that humanity send representatives to Kepler Station for immediate negotiations. They would discuss terms for ending the conflict that had begun when humans refused to accept their place as a protected species under alien oversight. Chen read the message 3 times before speaking. "How long do we have to respond?" 72 hours, Admiral. They want an answer by then, and if we agree, they expect our delegation to arrive at Kepler Station within 2 weeks. The Admiral turned away from the screen and walked to the observation window that looked out over Earth's scarred moon. The surface still bore the marks of the Zephyrian attack 18 months ago, when the insectoid aliens had tried to establish a forward base there. The craters and melted metal served as a constant reminder of what humanity was fighting against. "Send a message to Earth Command," Chen said quietly. "Tell them we accept. I'll lead the delegation myself." Torres looked surprised. "Admiral, are you sure that's wise? The Council representatives include some of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Veltar alone have destroyed 12 civilizations in the past 1,000 years. Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That's exactly why I need to be there, Commander. This isn't just about negotiations, this is about sending a message." 2 weeks later, the human diplomatic vessel Defiance approached Kepler Station through the swirling nebula that surrounded the ancient structure. The station was enormous, built by a long-dead race millions of years ago, and now serving as neutral ground for the galaxy's most important political meetings. Its crystalline spires reached out into space like the fingers of some cosmic hand, each one large enough to house a small city. Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the station grow larger through the view screen. Behind her, the ship's captain gave quiet orders to the crew, preparing for docking procedures. The Defiance was not the largest ship in the human fleet, nor was it the most heavily armed, but it was fast, and it was equipped with the most advanced technology humanity had developed during the war. "Admiral," said the ship's communication officer, "we're receiving docking instructions from Kepler Station, Bay 17, Level 4. "Follow their instructions," Chen replied, "and remind the crew that this is a diplomatic mission. No weapons are to be visible, and everyone is to follow standard protocols." The docking process took 30 minutes, during which Chen reviewed the files on each of the alien species she would be meeting. The Galactic Council consisted of 12 races, each one ancient and powerful in its own way. The Veltar were master strategists who thought in terms of centuries rather than years. The Zephyrian Hive was a collective intelligence that could coordinate millions of individuals as if they were parts of a single organism. The Ethon Collective possessed psychic abilities that could read and manipulate the minds of other species. Then there were the others. The Chronari Empire, whose warriors had conquered half the galaxy before joining the Council. The Nexus Syndicate, master traders who controlled most interstellar commerce. The Hegemony of Suns, an alliance of solar-powered beings who lived in the cores of stars. Each species represented thousands of years of technological development and military experience. Against all of this, humanity stood alone. 3 years ago, when the Council had first contacted Earth, they had offered humanity a simple choice: accept protection under Council oversight, or face the consequences of trying to expand into space without permission. The human government had chosen to fight, and the war that followed had been devastating. Human colonies on the edge of known space had been destroyed. Entire fleets had been wiped out in battles that lasted only minutes. The aliens had superior technology, superior numbers, and superior experience. By every logical measure, humanity should have surrendered long ago. But humans had never been particularly logical. Chen made her way to the airlock where her small delegation was waiting. There were only 4 of them in total. Herself, 2 diplomatic aides, and a single security officer. It was a surprisingly small group for such important negotiations, but Chen had insisted on keeping the team minimal. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, revealing a corridor that stretched away into the depths of Kepler Station. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light, and the air smelled of ozone and something else that might have been flowers. Waiting for them was a figure that Chen recognized from the intelligence briefings. Ambassador. Veltar Cathara was 8 feet tall and made entirely of living crystal. Light moved through his translucent body in patterns that indicated his emotional state, though Chen had never learned to read them properly. His voice, when he spoke, sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Admiral Chen," he said, inclining, his crystalline head in what might have been a bow. "The Council has been expecting you. We have much to discuss." Chen nodded politely. "Ambassador Cathara, thank you for hosting these negotiations. I hope we can find a solution that benefits everyone." Cathara's internal lights flickered in what Chen thought might be amusement. "Indeed, the Council has prepared terms that should be acceptable to your species. Please, follow me." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch on forever, past chambers filled with alien beings that Chen recognized from intelligence reports. Some were clearly tourists or traders, but others were obviously military personnel from various council species. All of them stopped to stare at the human delegation as they passed. Finally, they reached the main conference chamber, a vast circular room with a domed ceiling that showed real-time images of the stars outside. Around the edges of the room sat the representatives of the 12 council species, each in their own specially designed seating area. Chen took her seat at the human section, a simple chair and desk that looked almost primitive compared to the elaborate accommodations for the other species. Her aides sat behind her, while the security officer remained standing by the door. Cathara moved to the center of the room, his crystal body casting rainbow patterns on the walls. "We are gathered here today to discuss terms for ending the conflict between the Galactic Council and the human species. The Council has prepared generous terms that will allow humanity to find its place in the galactic community while ensuring the stability that has maintained peace for thousands of years." Chen listened carefully, noting the careful phrasing. The aliens weren't here to negotiate. They were here to dictate terms to a defeated enemy. Around the room, she could see the other council representatives watching her, with expressions that ranged from curiosity to contempt. But Chen had not come here to surrender. She had come here for an entirely different reason, one that the council could not possibly suspect. As Cathara began outlining the preliminary discussions that would lead to the formal presentation of terms, Chen settled back in her chair and waited. The real negotiations were about to begin. The formal presentation began the next morning in the same vast chamber, but now the lighting had been adjusted to create a more intimidating atmosphere. The dome above showed images of destroyed human colonies and burning ships, a not so subtle reminder of what happened to species that opposed the council. Admiral Chen sat quietly in her simple chair, hands folded on the desk before her, while around the room the 12 council representatives arranged themselves for maximum psychological impact. The Chronari delegate, General Thaxmore, was a 9-foot-tall warrior whose battle scars told the story of 100 conquered worlds. The Zephyrian representative was actually a cluster of 6 individuals who spoke in perfect unison, their voices creating an unsettling harmonic effect. Ambassador Cathara stood in the center of the room, his crystal body now glowing with a cold blue light that suggested authority and judgment. In his hands he held a data tablet made of the same living crystal as his body, the terms of surrender written in scripts from a dozen different languages. "Admiral Chen," Cathara began, his voice echoing off the dome above. "The Galactic Council has invested considerable time and effort in developing these terms. They represent not just an end to hostilities but a path forward for your species, into a stable and prosperous future under Council guidance." Chen nodded politely. "I'm listening, Ambassador." The first holographic display materialized above the center of the room, showing a detailed breakdown of human military assets. Every ship, every base, Every weapons platform that the Council knew about was listed with precise specifications. The list was impressive in its thoroughness, though Chen noted several significant omissions. Under the terms we propose, Kethera continued, humanity will immediately surrender all military vessels to Council oversight. This includes not just warships, but also armed merchant vessels, defense platforms, and any spacecraft capable of mounting weapons systems. These vessels will be decommissioned or transferred to Council forces as appropriate. General Thaxmore leaned forward in his massive chair, his 4 eyes glowing with predatory satisfaction. Your ships will be examined for useful technology before being scrapped. Any innovations that prove valuable will be integrated into Council fleets. This is standard procedure for defeated species. The second display showed human colonies throughout known space, each one marked with detailed population figures and resource assessments. Chen recognized all of them, though again she noticed that several human settlements were missing from the list. Regarding territorial claims, Kethera said, humanity will withdraw from all disputed systems and relocate to designated worlds within Council space. These worlds have been carefully selected to provide adequate resources for your population while ensuring proper oversight. The Nexus Syndicate representative, a being that looked like a collection of metallic tentacles around a central core, spoke in a voice like grinding gears. The designated worlds are all within established trade routes. Your people will have opportunities for employment in Council industries, providing mutual benefit to all parties. Chen made a note on her tablet, though she was actually activating a recording system that would transmit everything back to Earth Command. How many worlds are we talking about? 7 worlds in 3 systems, Kethera replied. This represents a significant improvement over your current scattered holdings. Centralized population centers are much more efficient and easier to administer. The Taidjeu third display was the most shocking. It showed population statistics for every human world, broken down by age, profession, and what the aliens called utility ratings. Chen's expression didn't change, but inside she felt a cold anger building. The Council recognizes that humanity possesses certain unique traits that could be valuable to the galactic community, Kethera explained. Your species shows remarkable adaptability and creative problem-solving abilities. Therefore, the Council is prepared to accept 30% of your total population as tribute workers. The silence in the room was complete, except for the soft humming of the station's life support systems. Chen looked up from her tablet, her voice carefully controlled. Tribute workers? The Ethon Collective representative spoke for the first time, its voice seeming to come from inside Chen's own head, rather than from the ethereal, almost ghostly figure floating near the ceiling. Your people would be assigned to various Council projects where their unique abilities would be most beneficial. It is an honor rarely offered to newly integrated species. Of course, added Kethera quickly, families would not be separated unnecessarily. The selection process would be conducted fairly and humanely. Chen made another note. And the remaining 70% of the population would remain on the designated worlds under Council protection, Kethera said. They would be free to pursue peaceful occupations suitable to their abilities, agriculture, basic manufacturing, cultural preservation activities. The fourth display showed technological assessments, comparing human achievements to those of established Council species. The analysis was both condescending and revealing, highlighting areas where human technology was considered primitive, while noting several innovations that had surprised Council forces during the war. Regarding technology transfer, Kethera continued, humanity will share all technological innovations with the Council for proper evaluation and distribution. In return, your people will receive access to approved Council technologies that will improve their quality of life significantly. General Thaxmore's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. Your weapons technology in particular has shown some interesting developments. The Council is eager to study your kinetic projectile systems and your unusual approach to shield harmonics. The Zephyrian cluster buzzed in unison before speaking. Human computer systems also show promise. Your artificial intelligence programs lack sophistication but demonstrate remarkable efficiency. These will be valuable additions to Council databases. Chen continued taking notes, asking occasional questions about details while hiding her growing amazement at the alien's arrogance. They were essentially demanding that humanity become a slave species, and they seemed to genuinely believe they were offering generous terms. The final display showed a timeline for implementation. The entire process was scheduled to take less than 6 months, from initial surrender to final integration into Council society. It was efficient, thorough, and completely devastating to any hope of human independence. The Council recognizes that this represents a significant change for your species, Kithara said, his crystal form now glowing with what Chen thought might be satisfaction. However, history shows that species who accept Council guidance quickly adapt and thrive within the galactic community. The alternative, as your recent military experiences have demonstrated, is considerably less pleasant. Around the room, the other Council representatives nodded or made sounds of agreement. They had clearly expected this to be a simple formality, the defeated humans accepting the inevitable with appropriate gratitude. Chen finished writing her notes and looked up at Kithara. These are certainly comprehensive terms, Ambassador. The Council has obviously put considerable thought into the details. Indeed, Kithara replied, his internal lights flickering with pleasure. The Council has extensive experience in integrating new species into galactic society. These procedures have been refined over thousands of years. I can see that, Chen said neutrally. However, I will need to consult with my government before providing an official response. These are significant decisions that will affect my entire species. There was a moment of surprise around the room. Clearly, the Council representatives had expected immediate acceptance or, at worst, some futile attempt at negotiation for slightly better terms. Kithara's lights dimmed slightly. Of course, Admiral. How much time do you require? Chen checked her chronometer. I should be able to provide you with humanity's official response by tomorrow morning. Will that be acceptable? Certainly, Kithara said, though his tone suggested he found the delay unnecessary. The Council is prepared to be patient with your decision-making process. We understand that accepting reality can be difficult for proud species. Chen stood up, followed by her 2 aides and the security officer. Thank you for your understanding, Ambassador. I look forward to continuing our discussions tomorrow. As they left the chamber, Chen could feel the eyes of all 12 Council representatives following them. She maintained her calm composure until they were safely back aboard the Defiance, but once the airlock sealed behind them, she allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had just made the biggest mistake in their long and bloody history. They had shown their hand completely, revealing not just their plans for humanity, but their fundamental assumptions about human nature and capabilities. Tomorrow morning, they would learn just how wrong they had been. Admiral Chen waited until the Defiance was completely secure before making her way to the ship's communication center. The small chamber was equipped with humanity's most advanced quantum entanglement communicator, a device that could send messages across the galaxy instantaneously. More importantly, it was completely undetectable by any known alien technology. Lieutenant Commander Martinez was already at the communication station, running final security checks on the system. Around the room, other crew members worked quietly, at their stations, maintaining the ship's systems while trying not to look as curious as they felt about what their admiral was planning to discuss with Earth Command. The channel is secure, Admiral, Martinez reported. We have a direct line to General Harrison at Earth Command. Chen settled into the communication chair and activated the holographic display. Within seconds, the familiar face of General Marcus Harrison appeared before her, his expression serious but alert. Behind him, she could see the bustling activity of Earth Command's Strategic Operations Center. Admiral Chen, Harrison said without preamble. Report. The Council has presented their terms, General. They want complete surrender, relocation, of our population to 7 designated worlds. 30% of our people as tribute workers, and full technology transfer. Harrison's expression didn't change, but Chen knew him well enough to see the anger burning in his eyes. Essentially slavery, then. Dressed up in diplomatic language, but yes, Chen confirmed. They're clearly confident that we have no choice, but to accept. Their arrogance is even more complete than our intelligence suggested. Perfect, Harrison said, and now he was smiling. Are you ready to proceed with Prometheus? Chen felt a surge of satisfaction. After 3 years of careful planning and sacrifice, the moment had finally arrived. Yes, sir. All pieces are in position. How is the fleet status? Harrison's image shifted as he turned to consult with someone off-screen. When he looked back, his expression was grim but determined. Admiral Torres reports that the Prometheus fleet is at full readiness. 237 ships, all equipped with phase shift technology and AI-guided weapon systems. They've been holding position in the Void Sector for the past 6 months. Chen nodded. The Void Sector was a region of space between galaxies where no stars existed, making it effectively invisible to long-range sensors. It had been the perfect hiding place for humanity's real military force, while the aliens focused on destroying decoy fleets and obsolete ships. What about the sleeper teams? She asked. Operation Sandman is green across the board, Harrison replied. We have teams in position on 47 Council worlds, including all 12 homeworlds. Agent Rodriguez confirms that the sabotage packages are ready for activation on your signal. Chen allowed herself a moment of pride in her species. For 3 years, while the galaxy watched humanity apparently struggle against overwhelming odds, thousands of human agents had been infiltrating Council territory. They had posed as refugees, traders, and workers, slowly working their way into positions where they could access critical infrastructure. The aliens' own arrogance had made it possible. They saw humans as primitive and harmless, beneath their notice except as a military nuisance. The idea that humans could conduct sophisticated espionage operations had never occurred to them. And the technology demonstrations? Chen asked. Harrison's smile widened. Dr. Yamamoto says the new weapons are performing beyond expectations. The phase shift drives allow our ships to move through dimensions the aliens don't even know exist. Their shields and weapons are completely useless against attacks they can't detect or predict. Chen remembered the test footage she had seen before. Leaving Earth. Human ships appearing and disappearing like ghosts, weapons that learned and adapted to enemy countermeasures, AI systems that could coordinate thousands of simultaneous actions with inhuman precision. The technology represented a completely different approach to warfare than anything the Council species had ever encountered. What about the AI? She asked. Area is ready, Harrison said, referring to the Adaptive Response Intelligence Array. That would coordinate the entire operation. She's been analyzing Council tactics and strategies for 2 years now. Her projections suggest a 94% probability of complete success. Chen nodded. Area was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement, an artificial intelligence that didn't just follow programmed instructions, but actually learned and adapted in real time. The aliens had nothing comparable, relying instead on traditional command, structures that could be predicted and exploited. The volunteers? Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Every single crew member in the Prometheus fleet volunteered for this mission, Harrison said quietly. They know the risks, and they know what we're fighting for. Morale has never been higher. Chen felt a surge of emotion that she quickly suppressed. The human crews hiding in the Void Sector were all volunteers who had been willing to fake their own deaths and leave their families behind for 3 years. All for this moment. Their sacrifice made what was about to happen possible. Admiral, Harrison continued, I need to ask you directly. Are you certain the Council will reject our counter-proposal? Chen thought about the arrogant aliens she had faced that morning. Their complete confidence in their own superiority and their obvious contempt for human capabilities. They'll reject it, General. They can't conceive of humanity as anything other than a defeated enemy begging for mercy. The idea that we might have our own terms to offer is literally beyond their comprehension. Then we proceed as planned, Harrison said. Operation Prometheus will commence immediately upon your signal. All teams are standing by. Chen felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. In a few hours, she would give an order that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Humanity would either take its place as a major galactic power, or they would be completely destroyed in the attempt. General, she said quietly, there's something else. The Council's intelligence on our capabilities is remarkably accurate for what they know, but they're missing some crucial pieces. They have no idea about the Prometheus fleet, no knowledge of our phase shift technology, and they've completely underestimated our espionage capabilities. Harrison nodded. That was always the plan, Admiral. Operation Misdirection has been our greatest success. For 3 years, we've fed them exactly the information we wanted them to have while hiding our true capabilities. Chen smiled grimly. Every human defeat during the war had been carefully orchestrated to reinforce the aliens' assumptions about human limitations. Obsolete ships had been sacrificed to protect advanced technology. Decoy bases had been abandoned to hide the location of real facilities. Even human casualties had been mostly automated drones and volunteer crews who had agreed to fake their deaths. "The sacrifice hasn't been wasted," Harrison said, reading her expression. "Every person who gave their life for this operation knew they were buying time for humanity's future. Their names will be remembered forever." Chen stood up from the communication chair. "Then let's make sure their sacrifice means something. I'll deliver our counter-proposal tomorrow morning, and when the Council rejects it, we'll show them what humans are really capable of." Harrison's image began to fade as the connection ended. "Good luck, Admiral. The entire human race is counting on you." As the holographic display shut down, Chen remained standing in the communications center, looking out through the small porthole at the alien station beyond. Tomorrow morning, she would walk back into that conference chamber and offer the Council terms that would seem laughably arrogant to them, but they wouldn't be arrogant. They would be the last chance for peace before humanity demonstrated why it was a mistake to underestimate a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history fighting for survival against impossible odds. Chen made her way back to her quarters, where she would spend the next few hours reviewing the final details of humanity's counter-proposal. It was comprehensive, fair, and completely unacceptable to the alien mindset that saw the galaxy as their personal domain, which was exactly what made it perfect for what was about to happen. Outside her porthole, the stars looked the same as they always had. But by tomorrow night, the galaxy would be a very different place, and humanity would no longer be hiding in the shadows. Admiral Chen entered the conference chamber the next morning with the same calm composure she had shown the day before. Her two aides followed behind her, carrying data tablets and appearing for all the world like diplomats preparing for routine negotiations. The security officer remained by the door, hands clasped behind his back, looking professionally alert but not threatening. The 12 council representatives were already assembled, their various forms of alien biology creating an intimidating display around the circular chamber. The morning light filtering through the dome above cast strange shadows that seemed to emphasize the predatory nature of several species. Chen noted that they had arranged themselves even more formally than the previous day, clearly expecting this to be the moment of humanity's final surrender. Ambassador Kithara stood in the center of the room, his crystal body glowing with what Chen had learned to recognize as satisfaction. Around him, holographic displays showed updated casualty reports from the ongoing war, each image carefully chosen to emphasize human losses and alien superiority. "Admiral Chen," Kithara said as she took her seat, "I trust you have had sufficient time to consult with your government regarding our generous terms?" Chen settled into her chair and placed her hands flat on the desk before her. "Yes, Ambassador. Earth Command has reviewed your proposal thoroughly." General Thaxamore leaned forward in his massive chair, his battle-scarred face showing anticipation. "And your response?" Chen reached into her jacket and withdrew a small data crystal, placing it carefully on the desk where everyone could see it. "Before I respond to your terms, I would like to present humanity's counter-proposal." The silence in the room was absolute. For several seconds, none of the alien representatives seemed to comprehend what they had just heard. The idea that a defeated species might have terms of their own to offer was so far outside their experience that it took time for the words to register. Kithara's internal lights flickered in what Chen now recognized as confusion. "I'm sorry, Admiral, did you say counter-proposal?" "That's correct," Chen replied calmly. "Humanity has developed our own terms for ending this conflict. I believe you'll find them quite reasonable." She activated the data crystal, and a new holographic display materialized above the center of the room. Instead of images of destruction and defeat, it showed detailed star charts marking every council world, trade route, and military installation. The accuracy was startling, revealing intelligence that the aliens had never suspected humans possessed. The Nexus Syndicate representative, the collection of metallic tentacles, writhed nervously as it recognized the strategic importance of several locations that were supposedly secret. "How did you obtain this information?" Chen smiled politely. "Humanity has been quite busy during the past 3 years, Ambassador. We've learned a great deal about Council operations. The display shifted to show economic data, breaking down the resource flows and trade relationships that held the Council together. Every weakness and dependency was highlighted, every critical supply line marked for easy reference. Our first term, Chen said, consulting her tablet, is the immediate establishment of a new galactic government based on democratic principles. All species would have equal representation regardless of age or technological advancement. General Thaxmore's 4 eyes flared with anger. Impossible! The Council has maintained galactic order for 10,000 years. We will not hand power over to primitive species who have barely learned to leave their homeworlds. Our second term, Chen continued as if he hadn't spoken, is the complete dismantling of the tribute system. All species currently providing workers, resources, or technology under duress would be free to choose their own paths. The Ethan Collective's ghostly form shimmered with what might have been rage. You cannot possibly be serious. The tribute system ensures stability and proper resource allocation throughout the galaxy. Chen's expression remained perfectly neutral. Our third term is the establishment of independent oversight committees to investigate Council actions during the past millennium. Any species found to have been wrongfully enslaved or exploited would receive full reparations. Now the entire room was in uproar. Representatives from all 12 species began speaking at once, their voices creating a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Some demanded to know how humans dared to make such proposals. Others insisted that the entire idea was madness that proved human inferiority. Kithra's crystal form was now blazing with cold light as he struggled to maintain control of the meeting. Admiral Chen, these terms are completely unacceptable. They would destroy the foundations of galactic civilization. Our fourth term, Chen said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade, is the immediate withdrawal of all Council military forces to their respective home systems, pending the establishment of the new democratic government. The chamber fell silent again, this time with a quality of shocked disbelief that was almost tangible. The aliens stared at her as if she had suddenly sprouted additional heads or begun speaking in ancient mathematical equations. And our final term, Chen concluded, is the formal recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with full rights to expand and develop throughout unoccupied space. She deactivated the display and looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. These terms are non-negotiable. They represent humanity's minimum requirements for peace. The explosion of outrage that followed was unlike anything Chen had ever witnessed. 12 different species, each representing thousands of years of dominance and conquest, found themselves confronted with demands that challenged everything they believed about their place in the universe. General Thaxmore was the first to find his voice, rising from his chair to his full 9-foot height. This is insanity. You are a defeated species. You have no right to make demands of any kind. The Zephyrian cluster buzzed in perfect unison, their harmonic voices creating an almost hypnotic effect. Your arrogance exceeds even our worst projections of human psychology. You will accept our terms or face complete annihilation. Kithara moved closer to Chen's position, his crystal body now pulsing with angry red light. Admiral, I strongly suggest you reconsider this course of action. The Council has been more than generous in our original offer. These demands you present are the ravings of a species that has lost all connection to reality. Chen listened to the tirade with apparent patience, occasionally making notes on her tablet. When the immediate outburst had died down to angry muttering, she looked up and spoke in the same calm tone she had maintained throughout. I take it the Council rejects humanity's terms? Of course we reject them, Kithara snapped, his crystalline form crackling with energy. They are completely impossible. Chen nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected. In that case, there's nothing more to discuss. She stood up from her chair, followed immediately by her 2 aides. The security officer moved away from the wall, taking up position near the door as the small human delegation prepared to leave. The aliens stared in complete bewilderment. This was not how negotiations were supposed to work. Defeated species either accepted the terms offered by their betters, or they made desperate pleas for slightly better conditions. They did not simply walk away. Wait! Kithara called out as Chen reached the center of the room. Where are you going? Chen paused and turned back to face him. Back to my ship, Ambassador. The negotiations appear to be concluded. Concluded? General Thaxmore's voice was a roar of disbelief. We haven't even begun to discuss realistic terms. You cannot simply leave. Actually, we can, Chen replied pleasantly. You presented your terms yesterday. We presented ours this morning. Since neither side finds the other's position acceptable, there's nothing left to negotiate. The Nexus Syndicate representative's tentacles writhed frantically. But that's not how these things work. There must be compromise, discussion, modification of positions. Chen shook her head. Not in this case, I'm afraid. Humanity's terms are final just as yours were, since you've rejected them. We'll proceed with our alternative plans. She turned to leave again, but Cathara's voice stopped her once more. What alternative plans? Chen looked back over her shoulder, and for the first time since entering the chamber, her expression showed something other than diplomatic neutrality. The smile that crossed her face was cold and sharp as winter starlight. You should have accepted our terms 3 years ago when we first offered them, she said quietly. Now you'll discover what humans are really capable of when we stop playing defense. The human delegation walked out of the chamber, leaving behind 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, staring after them in complete confusion and growing alarm. Behind them, as the doors sealed shut, voices began rising again in argument and speculation. But Chen was no longer listening. She had delivered humanity's message, and now it was time for the galaxy to learn what that message really meant. The Defiance was waiting, and beyond it, hidden in the darkness between stars, the real human fleet was already moving into position. The first sign that something was wrong came exactly 4 hours after the human delegation departed Kepler station. Ambassador Cathara was in his private chambers, trying to understand what had just happened in the conference room, when his personal communication system began screaming emergency alerts. The holographic display that materialized showed chaos. On Veltar Prime, the crystalline homeworld of his species, every major power grid had failed simultaneously. Transportation networks were down. Communication arrays were broadcasting gibberish. Most alarming of all, the orbital defense platforms that protected the system had gone completely dark. Cathara's crystal form blazed with panic as he tried to contact other council representatives. What he discovered made his internal light dim with growing horror. Similar reports were flooding in from every council homeworld. The Zephyrian Hive's central coordination nodes had been infected with a virus that turned their perfect harmony into cacophonous noise. The Chronari Empire's military command centers were locked in recursive logic loops that prevented any orders from being issued. On Nexus Prime, the great trading computers that managed interstellar commerce had begun transferring vast sums of money to accounts that didn't exist, while simultaneously broadcasting the private financial records of every major council leader to public networks. The Ethon Collective's psychic amplifiers, the source of their mental powers, had been reprogrammed to broadcast human poetry instead of telepathic commands. But the technical failures were only the beginning. As Cathara watched in growing disbelief, new contacts began appearing on long-range sensors throughout council space. Ships that didn't match any known design were emerging from what looked like empty space, materializing as if they had stepped through doorways between dimensions. The vessels were clearly human in origin, but they bore no resemblance to the crude. Ships that council forces had been destroying for 3 years. These were sleek, predatory craft that seemed to bend light around themselves as they moved. Their hulls showed no visible weapons, but that only made them more menacing. General Thaxmore's voice crackled over the emergency communication channel, his usual confidence replaced by something approaching fear. Cathara, what intelligence do you have on these new human vessels? Our sensors can barely detect them, and our weapons are having no effect. Before Cathara could respond, the holographic display shifted to show a battle taking place in the Chronari system. A single human ship, no larger than a council destroyer, was engaged with an entire Chronari battle fleet. As Cathara watched, the human vessel simply vanished from normal space, reappearing behind the Chronari formation to launch weapons that seemed to learn and adapt as they flew. The Chronari ships, veterans of 100 campaigns, found themselves completely outmatched. Their shields offered no protection against attacks that phased through them as if they didn't exist. Their weapons couldn't target enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Within minutes, the entire fleet was either destroyed or disabled. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Council fleets that had seemed invincible were being systematically dismantled by human forces that fought like nothing any of them had ever encountered. The humans weren't just winning, they were demonstrating a complete technological superiority that made the past 3 years of warfare look like elaborate theater. The communication channel crackled with reports from panicked Council commanders. Human ships were appearing in supposedly secure systems, bypassing defenses that had protected those worlds for millennia. But most disturbing of all, they weren't behaving like conquerors. They were behaving like liberators. On worlds where tribute species had been forced to work in Council factories, human marines were landing to free the workers and provide them with weapons to defend themselves. Ancient slave compounds were being opened. Their inhabitants offered transport to free worlds or assistance in reclaiming their homelands. Everywhere the humans went, they brought the same message. The old order was ending, and every species would have the chance to choose its own destiny. The Nexus Syndicate representative's voice joined the emergency channel, his mechanical tones, heavy with despair. The humans have complete financial records for every major Council operation. They're broadcasting evidence of corruption, exploitation, and war crimes to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Our authority is collapsing. Kethera tried to process what he was seeing. In less than 6 hours, humanity had gone from a defeated species begging for mercy to a galactic superpower that was systematically dismantling everything the Council had built over 10,000 years. It was impossible, unthinkable, and yet undeniably happening. The final blow came when Admiral Chen's face appeared on every communication screen in Council space simultaneously. She was standing on the bridge of a ship that looked like it had been built from crystallized starlight, with crew members that moved with inhuman precision around control stations that defied easy understanding. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice carrying clearly across dozens of languages and species. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Accord. For 3 years, humanity has endured a war of aggression launched by the Galactic Council. Today, that war ends." Behind her, displays showed the positions of human fleets throughout Council space. There were hundreds of ships, possibly thousands, all of them clearly superior to anything the Council possessed. The Council offered humanity a choice between slavery and extinction, Chen continued. We chose a third option: liberation, not just for ourselves, but for every species that has suffered under Council domination. The camera view expanded to show the full bridge, revealing crew members from dozens of different species working alongside humans. Former tribute workers, freed slaves, and refugees from Council oppression had all found places in humanity's forces. "We offer new terms to the galaxy," Chen said. "Every species will have the right to self-determination. Every world will choose its own government. Every individual will be free to pursue their own destiny without interference from those who claim superiority through age or conquest." Kethera felt his crystal form beginning to crack under the stress of what he was witnessing. The human admiral was offering exactly what she had proposed that morning, but now she was in a position to enforce her terms rather than merely suggest them. "To the former Council leadership," Chen said, her expression hardening slightly, "you have 24 hours to order the complete withdrawal of your forces to your home systems. Any attempt to continue hostilities will be met with overwhelming force. Any attempt to harm tribute populations will be considered a war crime and prosecuted accordingly." The transmission shifted to show live feeds from across the galaxy. Human ships were broadcasting the same message in every known language while simultaneously demonstrating their technological supremacy. Council fleets were surrendering rather than face destruction, their commanders finally understanding that they were facing an enemy they had never truly known. "The age of domination is over," Chen concluded. "The age of cooperation begins now. To those species ready to join us in building a better galaxy, we offer partnership and friendship. To those who cling to the old ways of conquest and exploitation, we offer one final warning. Humanity has spent 3 years learning everything about you. We know your strengths, your weaknesses, and your fears. Do not test our resolve." The transmission ended, leaving Council space in stunned silence, broken only by the sounds of surrendering fleets and collapsing infrastructure. In his chambers on Kepler station, Kithara slowly dimmed his internal lights as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. For 3 years, while the Council had celebrated easy victories over primitive human forces, the real human military had been hidden, growing stronger and preparing for this moment. Every human defeat had been carefully orchestrated to maintain the illusion of weakness while gathering intelligence on Council capabilities. Every plea for peace had been an opportunity to study their enemies. Every destroyed human ship had been a small price to pay for information that would make the final victory possible. The humans had played a game that lasted 3 years, and they had won before the Council ever realized they were playing. As reports continued to flood in of Council forces surrendering across the galaxy, Kithara finally understood what Admiral Chen had meant when she said the negotiations were concluded. There had never been any negotiations. There had only been humanity giving the Council one last chance to surrender peacefully before demonstrating why resistance was futile. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps that was exactly what it needed. Outside his window, human ships moved through space like schools of metallic fish, beautiful and deadly and utterly alien in their approach to warfare. They had come not as conquerors, but as liberators, offering freedom to species that had forgotten what the word meant. For the first time in his long life, Kithara wondered if perhaps the humans were right.